Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 47th CALLERLAB Convention here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Today is April the 12th, and this is Restart Mainstream. I am Terry Hebert. I'm your moderator for the session, and with me is Mr. Walt Burr from Munich, Germany, and as well Jeff Palmer from Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I hail from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. Since we're a small group and everything, we will try to go through these. We were hoping to have a square to be able to show everything, but we'll work our way through it. We'll talk about some things. Our calls that we're going to cover this afternoon are 8-chain family, Scootback, and Cloverleaf. Okay? So we'll start with mine with 8-chain through and everything. So when we talk about 8-chain through and the family, one of the things I like to do is I like to start with talking about the definition and going through the CALLERLAB definition a lot and how it plays out and whatnot. And as well, I try to emphasize a lot with the dancers, really get them in the form of the courtesy turn. The reason why we work with the courtesy turn is because as we work through with 8-chain through, that sometimes, if we don't have that courtesy turn done properly on the ends, it turns into a circle. We don't want that kind of type thing. So, as a caller approaching this subject of the workshopping or teaching 8-chain through, I take that moment to talk about courtesy turn and its importance in the early teachings. With my own clubs, I always talk about how courtesy turn, and my wife will tell you this quite easily, how I always say when I teach courtesy turn, ladies, stand there and wait until he turns you. She said the first night that I taught that, why did you say that to them? Well, because it instills in their mind that the ladies still need to be treated like a lady, need to be turned when they're facing out. So this here kind of instills in their mind that way. So, sometimes it also creates a little bit of giggling and laughing amongst the ladies as well, and the men kind of instill in their mind what that does. And I'll take a couple of minutes to expand on how it kind of, the courtesy turn becomes important. We work a little bit through it. After we've established that courtesy turn, we talk about, we get them into our sets and we square them up and we get them into an 8-chain forward position. Now we start to work it hand by hand. And one of the things I try to instill in my dancers when I teach the 8-chain is that you got to treat it like you're on a set of railroad tracks or on like the set of rails of a rocking chair. That if you go to the end, if you don't turn back, you're going to fall off the end. Okay? So if you look at my hand out, you'll see a set of train tracks, you'll see a set of Adirondack railings, rocking chair rails here in Pennsylvania. So then we'll work through each hand and we'll talk about the importance of each hand. And how we start with our first hand, we always start with our right. And we talk about how the importance of each one of those hands are. So we all start with a right pull by for our first hand. That sets it up and creates our second pull by. And we talk about how the centers, if they're facing somebody, they're going to pull by. But if they're facing out of that set, we have to do our courtesy turn to turn back because we don't want them to fall off those rails and create a crash. Okay? So we get them to count them out as well as we go along. We say 2. And if they get that instilled in their mind with counting it out as they go along, it'll start to settle in with them as well. We'll work on 3. Another right pull by. And we know that everybody's pulling that straight pull by for the third. And then we'll stop them, we'll talk about it a little bit. And then we'll start them into their fourth hand with the left. And again, by this point, we've got somebody different there, so we talk about our courtesy turn on that end. By this point, I usually stop my dancers up a little bit and we'll talk a little bit of how we've kind of taken everybody and flipped them around to four hands, who they're looking at, why they're looking at them, and that we've got halfway through the set, and if successfully everything goes, we should be back on the other end. So then we discuss, after four, we start our right pull by, we do our 5, we do our left for 6, emphasizing the courtesy turn again, 7, and then our 8, back, putting us back where we are. Hopefully succession happens. Sometimes it doesn't always work that way for whatever reason, one way or another. But as they count it out, as they spread them out, if they do happen to get turned along the way, we stop them up and we work on them from there. So at least if we complete the number of hands. And then from there, after we do that kind of type thing, we break it down a little bit more for them as to 8 chain 4s, put them in setups where we can do 6s, and we work on those kind of type numbers. After a while that we see the succession, then I'll work on them a little bit with doing their numbers non-stop. Sometimes that's not always successful, but after a little bit of time, they start to count it out and you hear them a lot more. So, one of the things that I always find that if we do it from the same starting position, we will usually have succession the first couple times through. We have them go home, we say side square through 4, get to your corner, we start at 8 chain. It seems like it's completely a whole new world to them. It really isn't, but for the dancer, learning is like, oh, what am I supposed to do? I'm now into the new person kind of starting. And we work on that from there as well. But after that, we work on some figures, and we go through some things, and we try to do as much with them as possible. And I know without a square, it's kind of harder to do some of these things. So, but for 8 chain, it's one of those calls that when it successfully is done and flows nicely, everything seems to flow very nice along the movements, and dancers have fun with it. No matter what hand you throw at them, they seem to have succession with it. And that's kind of a big thing for us, that we make the dancers have fun and succeed in the end of it. I don't know what the rest of the guys feel about like that, but you know, what their experience is as well. So. For that, we do our figures, and then we lead them into some singers and whatnot, and we bring back some dancing and whatnot. As well, we try to put them in some situations that they might not always get, but we try to help them out as much as we can, kind of type thing. So, I really don't have much more I can present, per se.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you present the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9s along with that and let them, and you know, show them, hey, this ends up in a different position than the even numbers?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. We break it down, we step each step along the way so that they can see where each step brings them. And then we'll go back and we'll start the odd numbers, then the even numbers, and we work it so that we can kind of make things, so they get into all positions eventually during the evening or over a 2-week period, depending on the situation that we're teaching, so that we can kind of have variances for them and stuff like that.
Or repeat it, just, how about fractions?
Here, let's give you a microphone, just so we stay legal. Heaven forbid we should do anything illegal. Hard to keep up with that with Bear in here.
Al from Maine, what about fractions?
As in,
8 chain, 3.5.
I don't do a whole lot of that with my dancers. Something I explore with my upper level dancers, but in my mainstream I keep it to the numbers that they're more familiar with. If we get into fractions for a lot of them, with some of the aged dancers that we have in our area, fractions is not one of their best things. So we don't work as much with that, but as a workshop, as a one-time kind of type thing, we might do a little bit more with it. But for the most part, we just stick to the straight numbers for them, so they have success in that way.
You want to say questions for the very end?
No, can do it as we go along.
We just leave the microphone back here.
Good.
So I was just wondering, do you have anything you play with when you have?
Who are you?
My name is Burr out of Denver, Colorado. Anyway, if you have a group who's really eating it up, do you have anything where you would do like head square through 4, okay? And then sides, so you're part of an 8 chain 4, and then heads, so you're part of a square through 4? Just as a different kind of thing to be able to do. You end up in a T-bone and you have to figure out easy ways out of it. But it's kind of a cute thing to be able to do, but they have to make them realize both those parts. And sometimes I run into a group who's picking that stuff up just so quick that it's fun to have something else like that to let them eat up as part of it. Other groups, you're like, if I can get through the 4, it's a good night. But if you have some groups who just eat it up, it's nice to have something like that. Just a thought.
I know that with some of our groups, we do some of the, split them a little bit with my upper levels. Because in our area, the dancing levels before COVID was, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have some good, strong mainstream groups and everything that we can play around with some different fractions parts, or, you know, breaking down and do your part of this and do your part of that. They'll do it for a little tip. They wouldn't want to do it for a whole evening or anything like that. But they will play around with it for a part, you know. You can throw it in every once in a while, but to do it for a whole tip would not work. But if you throw it at them periodically, they'll respond. They may hiccup for a minute, but once they catch on and they start listening and tuning in, then they certainly will pick up and go.
No, you're right. You want that or up?
I was hoping you'd talk a lot so I didn't have to. Excuse me. I have a little bit of a throat problem today. My presentation is, go ahead.
You want to kiss and tell me?
Damn, you suck. Yeah, I wish you'd shave before. Scootback. All right, the definition. This is directly out of the CALLERLAB definition. The starting formation is a box circulate or a quarter tag. All right, we don't see a whole lot of quarter tag scootback in the U.S. The ending formation is also a box circulate or a 3/4 tag. The timing is 6 steps, and the dance action is from the box circulate. Trailers extend, arm turn half and extend, while the leaders box circulate in one spot. From a quarter tag, it's everybody extend, turn a half, and extend, and it ends in 3/4 tag. Scootback is an equivalent for trade, and it's, for those of you, anybody who does mental image, it's an O figure in mental image. Now, it's going to be that today, I'm telling you. I'm laughing because you should have seen some of the emails that went back and forth. It didn't have a whole lot to do with Main Street. In the material that's in your handout, there are several groups of modules. The first one is from parallel waves and columns. Yes, Scootback can be done from column, because a column, if you think about it, is just 2 boxes. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I am going to point out some of the places that you might want to be careful about. This is the kind of material we do in Europe all the time. And I thought it might be interesting for folks here to see some of it, give some of it a try. Our dancing is a little bit more technical than what we see here in the States. On the first one, the first module under parallel waves and columns, there's 2 scootbacks. One is a usual right-handed scootback, and one is a girls-only scootback. All right, it's 4 girls together. There's also a lead left farther down in that module. It's heads lead right, swing through, scoot back, girls scoot back, everybody recycles, star through, pass through, wheel and deal, centers lead left. Right? This is very common with our dancers. I don't know how common it is here in the States. I haven't tried it yet. So, the second module, I have to look. The second module is pretty standard. The third one is a singing call figure. So don't mistake that. In the next group of modules, it's marked workshop material. Now here's where things could get a little bit strange compared to what you do here. The first one has an ends, its sides right and left through, heads past the ocean extend. The ends circulate once and a half. Girls scoot back, boys do a U-turn back. Boys promenade the outside track and the in-facing girl run. All right, boys find your partner, swing and promenade. That's not a singing call figure. I had a couple people say, oh, there's a swinging promenade, I'd use that in a singing call. No, doesn't work that way. All right, this is workshop material. The second one is a quarter tag scoot back. Heads past the ocean, everybody scoot back. All right, that's quarter tag, ends in 3/4 tag. In the wave, spin the top outsides, cloverleaf. Center girls cross run, everybody scoot back. That's another quarter tag, scoot back. The outfacers, and here's something, yeah, maybe you guys can answer this. We use separate and when you meet quite often. Do you do that here? I know you do separate, around one, make a line, or what. We use separate and when you meet. I'm getting,
At SSD, yeah, we.
it's in SSD?
Yeah, head separate, star through, head separate,
Okay.
touch quarter.
Okay.
But that's
I'm
new.
Use the mic, please.
Larry?
Turn it on, too.
Yes.
Larry Marquise, Denver, Colorado.
Hi.
At SSD, we use separate some other ways that we typically see at mainstream. From a static square, head separate and star through, or
Okay.
head separate and touch a quarter, and other variations. And also from 3/4 tag, the outsides can separate and do something,
Okay.
and
This
from
is
quarter
only
tag
at-
as well. But
Only in SSD?
well, that's the way we do SSD in Denver.
Okay. Okay then.
Can't speak for the rest of the country.
Yeah,
I saw that out from Maine. I saw that in the SSD curriculum,
Yeah.
and I realized that, I mean, the very first time I taught separate, I did it like that, and nobody understood what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally like, that's not what separate is. And I'm like, I'm looking at the definition, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
It just has to be retaught to your regular dancers to understand that separate is one call and then it's followed by whatever comes next, like most calls are.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. So we don't have SSD at all in Europe.
Right.
Not yet. And it was a little bit of a surprise the other night at the Ways and Means dance when we were told it's alternating mainstream and SSD. And my wife was the MC for that. She kind of went, because we don't have SSD. Anyway, in the second one, outfacers separate and when you meet, step to a mini wave. Right. Boys trade wheel and deals, center floor center girls, the centers step out, the others face in, flutter wheel. Right? After that, it's all standard mainstream. Okay, the third one is pretty much standard stuff. You'll notice if you use any of these or put any of them through terminations, it's not always boys turning or girls turning. Sometimes it's one of each. Okay. And the last module lower on the page is a singing call figure. Now we've tried all of these, we've done all of these with our dancers, they all work. The singing call figures are a little bit tricky on the timing, so if you try them, you might want to walk through them first so your dancers don't struggle. On the Yeah, it's the last. On the third page, Al, I'm glad you mentioned fractions earlier. This is some scoop back 1½ material. The way scoop back 1½ works is everybody does a normal scoop back to add on the half. The in facers go in. Yes, Dana, you can come in. The in he's not old enough? Okay. The in facers, that's on the tape, by the way. The in facers go in, touch, and hinge, and the out facers simply face a quarter. They do a half of a circulate, which is just a quarter turn. It finishes in a two-face line. Okay? What we don't recommend is that you try a scoop back 1½ from a quarter tag. It can be done, but it comes out really, really weird. All right? If you try that, you're on your own. I didn't tell you that. Okay. Scoop back 1½ is interesting because it finishes in a two-face line, and you can do anything you want from there. There is a singing call figure about halfway down the page, which is just a head square through, touch a quarter, scoop back 1½, couple circulate, Ferris wheel, center square through 3. Pretty standard. All right. Once you walk your dancers through that 1½, it usually comes pretty easy. And then the last one, the last module, scoop back 1½ from what's called a single box. This has the 4 girls in the middle doing a scoop back 1½. All right. Heads lead right, veer left, girls scoop back 1½. Boys circulate, girls half tag, because the girls are in a two-face line, boys trade, Ferris wheel square through 3. Again, that's not a singing call figure. The one above it is. Questions about scoop back? It's pretty straightforward stuff.
I was just going to say, from a quarter tag, you can also half scoop back twice.
Say it again?
From a quarter tag, half scoop back twice.
You could, but it's going to get pretty strange.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
The first one just leads.
half a scoop back. How do you do a half a scoop back?
After one scoop back, it's the same.
Yeah, okay, I take your point. Yes, Bear?
Burr Miller. I was just going to say that, you know, in Europe and Japan, they don't have an issue with it, but it seems like here in the States and Canada, if you want to have dancer success, you've got to change their focus from the linear. If you did a swing through and a scoop back here, just popped it on, most of the dancers here would stumble on it, because we need to help and change their focus from that linear of the wave into the box that they're going to do the scoop back in. And they don't see both of those necessarily, whereas it seems like in Europe and Japan they do. Also, if you're telling it advanced or any higher, they see both of those. But as we see in the United States at a festival or anything like that, for their success, you've got to change their focus as part of your choreography to give that to them. Just
Part of it is the way our dancers are taught. We teach the first thing we teach is a same-sex scoop back. We don't teach it with boys going in, girls flipping or anything. We teach it with 4 boys, 4 girls. We teach it with left-handed and right-handed, so they see that from day one. Now, I will agree with you, it's different here. I learned a real hard lesson at the Atlanta NSDC in the mainstream hall when I called a scoop back from left-handed columns. I got this thundering scream of, "You can't do that." Okay. Welcome to the USA. More questions. Thanks for the comment, Barry. You're right. It's what the dancers see, what their perception is. Do they see the box? Do they see the quarter tag? Things like that. Yeah, totally agree with you. That's all I have, guys. This is interesting material. We've tried all of it. It all works. But you will have to workshop some of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Walt. He's busy. So, welcome. A little shy today, looks like, but that's okay. I chose Cloverleaf because I feel like it's called enough that it's not totally unfamiliar to dancers, but it's not drilled in, and this is called Reboot. So I thought, well, we'll look at it like a reboot at first, and then we'll move on to other things quickly, okay? So in your notes, the definitions there, it actually has, obviously, basically 2 positions to do it, and those are all in there. So you guys know this stuff, so it's not a big deal here. I will say that Walt was a little bit late getting in. It was nervous at the airport. He had to get a COVID test before he got here. Plus, the pilot said he was working from home. So it was a little bit of a nervous time for him to get here.
I didn't mind him saying he's working from home, but what was a little bit nerve-wracking when he said, and we're having internet trouble.
That is bad. All right. So, that's good. So, the Cloverleaf action is, the dancers walk in a 3/4 circle, staying in their own quadrant of the set. And again, I like to use the reference to a cloverleaf on the highway or a cloverleaf in your yard if you're lucky and get a 4-leaf one in your yard. So using those references in the teach seems to help. During where you just have heads pass through in cloverleaf, usually not too big an issue. I never had a real problem getting the dancers through it or to do it. I usually show a demo square, showing it from just a heads pass through in cloverleaf or from a completed double pass through, and they seem like they pick it up pretty fast. It's not seem like it'd be a big deal. I have noticed the only trouble I ever have is in the double pass-through position, the trailing dancer wanting to cut off the first dancer. I assume they drive that way too. I don't know, but it just seems that. So if there's trouble with that, I have the trailing dancer put his hand or her hand on the shoulder of the one in front of them and let him do that a few times, and usually that helps. If it doesn't, I just get a rope out and tie them together. That just takes care of that. So anyway, that's the action of a, say, heads pass through in cloverleaf. There's a dance action involves a little extra. We're supposed to teach our dancers to step forward first, then do the action, to clear the box, if you will. So that's something that I think we can forget because it's really not listed except in the dance action. So if you have heads pass through, it would actually be step ahead in cloverleaf. But if we teach them to do that, we don't have to say it, So that's the basic general action. So the reboot, from a class perspective is, like I said, I get a demo square, run it through both ways, show them, and then, let them dance it. And there's choreography in your notes on that we are not going to be able to take advantage of the square. And there's quite a few, I think, and there's some zeros and equivalents and moving them around from a line to a box and that kind of stuff. And you guys, know all that stuff really. So I like to work it where I can put them home with a cloverleaf, stir the bucket with a cloverleaf. I like to work boys and girls. In other words, to me, it's a great call to make a theme tip out of, or you can workshop it and work it that way. I have found another way to do it that I think makes a really good workshop type thing, and maybe we can look at that with just 4 people, if we can do that. I thought it was kind of interesting, and I found it on a YouTube video that Haraway Swift posted of Jerry's story, because it was the anniversary of his death, unfortunately. But he was explaining this concept of a cloverleaf thing that he had been thinking about, I guess. And I heard it at first, and I was like, I'm not sure I get that. And so I watched the video again and said, I'm not sure I get that. So I watched it again, and I started to see what he was talking about. And I thought, man, that is really cool. So I got Taminations up, and I could not get Taminations to do what he was attempting to do. And I'm not smart enough with it, evidently, to make it do what I wanted it to do. So I got the old checkers out and away we went. So I thought this was a rather unique way to do it, and I've done it with about 3 or 4 different groups, and they've all had success with it. They all liked it. You just have to work the Cloverleaf action first. Get them used to doing that Cloverleaf out and away type setup and that action, that dance feel, and they usually don't have a problem. So I don't know if we can get 4 people up, and
We get one more, we might.
this will not be long. It also involves a really strange walk and dodge with it. So I need like a 1 and 2 couple, or yeah, 1 and 2 would be fine. Okay.
Well, we're now 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
One and 2, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Well, you guys really do things different here.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, that's the way it goes. So if we had, you're not going to do this obviously, but if we had the head square through 4, right and left through, okay, you can do it. Right and left through, go ahead, I love it, okay. Inside arch and dive into the middle, okay. And you'd be facing somebody else, but I want you to do a left touch and quarter, okay. Now, for posterity's sake, I want Doran to please fold behind him, because we would set it up to where it would end up like this. And you guys are just simply facing in as a couple.
You're still facing it.
You're facing.
Oh, we're not active.
Yeah, you're semi-active. So the setup would be this, and there would be another couple obviously facing in, and another couple adjacent to you guys in the same formation. So you'd be boxed in other words. So the dance action would say that the leader, which is, you know, Mr. Marquis, would step forward and start the Cloverleaf, and Doran would follow him. Okay? In behind like this. And the way I have it set up, so this is odd, you know, but I would have, Doran would actually be the girl, okay? So at this point, according to Jerry, you could just say walk and dodge, having you guys walk and dodge. That's kind of hard on the dancer, so I would say boy dodge, girl walk, and you would do that, and that would straighten this out, okay? So you guys can make an arch, these guys can dive in into a crawdad substitute, and you'll be good. Okay? So, I'm sorry? What, crawdads? I got it in Louisiana. Cajun thing.
We got no crawdads.
So, anyway, so if you guys are just quarter right, you know, and now Doran's in the lead, you know, and we'd Cloverleaf, go ahead, and it would give you that single file formation again, and the girl dodge and the boy walk, and you can do that. Now, in your notes, I have it set up. I said, well, I got it worked out to an out and left. Okay, that's in your notes. And I said, well, that's pretty cool. If we can do an out and left, certainly we can do a right and left grand. So I moved the checkers around and worked up some choreography, which unfortunately we can't show, to a right and left grand. Well, if we can do that, certainly we can stir the bucket. So did that, worked it out, same concept, it's just how you set it up differently, and they end up stirred the bucket. And of course, return to home. So I set this up this way, and you can also obviously put all the girls in tandem, all the boys in tandem, you know, have them go the other way, all this stuff. And it's really, once they get the idea of just that single track around the outside, and then that kind of weird walk and dodge, they love it. They're all, I had an A group do it, an SSD, no, it wasn't SSD, excuse me, 2 or 3 mainstream groups do it, with different varying degrees of proficiency. They all did it, once they got the Cloverleaf figured out.
How do you cue that?
I'm sorry, sir?
How do you cue that Cloverleaf?
Well, I run through the normal pass through and Cloverleaf, double pass through, everybody Cloverleaf. Get that feeling, and then I tell them, you and the guys in the center just basically did a double pass through. Okay, so they're basic, that's the shape that it's in. And I say, you guys are gonna go out and away, just like it says on a Cloverleaf on a highway. You're gonna go out and away, and if you're behind somebody, stay behind somebody. The same as you would in any Cloverleaf where you've got a leader, follower set up. And sometimes I'll point out, you know, Larry would be, I think, the girl, and I would say, you're gonna go single file, follow around there, and the first person's gonna be looking at the girl's back, in other words, in tandem, looking at their back. And it really wasn't any big deal. And the walk and dodge was a little bit weird, but, you know, just like you said, first person, which is normal, my stuff is the boy. Boy dodge, girl walk. And depending on what you do with the other couple, they can end up facing or behind, and then you have just a center star through, and then they stir the bucket, you know. And it's really not difficult once they get the idea of it, but it feels so different. And it's, you know, looks different, it feels different, it's not something they're used to doing, but it isn't hard. And once they do that a few times, they really liked it. Even the A group liked it. So, and like I said, you can mix it up enough and use those get-outs to add your variety, and you guys are smart, you're gonna come up with your own ideas anyway. And then, like I said, you put the girls in the middle, the boys in the middle, have them do the action, reverse it, you know, and there's tons of material there for a workshop. And it's just different enough that they liked it. I think Bear has a comment.
Surprise. So Steve, there, I'll just for a second, it's a question actually. So Larry, unwalk and Doran undodge. So, you know, we've got the same thing on the other side, right? Well, and it'd be fun to give it the formations a Jerry Story formation or something. I don't, since this doesn't have, unless somebody, Doran, you're thinking real quick, does this have a name for?
I've never seen it, but.
So anyway, but it'd be fun to come up with a name, even if it was a goofy name, or it could be a tribute to Jerry or whatever.
Oh, just to use like at the workshop?
At the workshop, to say, and now you're in one of these, you know, and give us
Yeah.
some name, whether it's around the holoday or around your theme or whatever, you can call it whatever you want to, because that formation is not defined anyplace. So you're just playing unknown grounds for the dancers, and they're going, oh, really? And Mitch is going, what's going on behind me, you know? So, you know, and when you're dancing, you're gonna get everybody doing it, so they all get to be at those places. But it'd be fun to have a funny name or something with it for this formation.
Yeah, you could get out a name, sure. Sing along with Mitch formation.
Tandem of three.
Oh, hi, Mitch.
Mitch Pangle, Broomfield, Colorado. I'm just curious. In my mind, I'm trying to see the phantoms over here. Are the two people lined up
Behind you.
straight across from me? Or
They'll be over here.
Listen.
It'd be like a mirror. It'd be
Yeah,
over
got
here.
it, got it.
You
Yep,
still have symmetry.
yep.
Yeah.
And you can arrange the center people to be facing them, their backs, you know, other things you could do. That's how you get the, you know, the stir the buckets and all that. And the right and left grand is they have to be facing them. So, and it's in the notes. So you can work that out. And
That was cool.
it's,
C1, this is a Siamese line.
It's like a.
Oh, that was called
So you got a
Siamese line.
tandem and a couple.
what's it called?
It's a Siamese formation.
Oh, Siamese.
Like
Okay.
a Siamese.
Siamese is a combination of couples and tandems.
Right, okay.
So we can do.
I would not be
various-
smart enough to know that.
Yeah.
Like a
No, I'm-
Siamese C, I guess. It's kind of weird.
So anyway,
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys getting up
In
and.
a perfect world, it would be like right in the
Yeah,
middle.
that's.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you'd be
Then we
dead
could do
center.
Siamese double pass-throughs and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Well, but this is neat though, because from here, the centers could, while they're doing that, could touch a quarter, and then everybody's got to walk and dodge.
You could, yes.
Or the centers could touch a quarter, the ends do the walk and dodge, while the centers are doing their cloverleaf.
Yeah.
Funny things, you just setting it right back
Yeah,
up again.
and yet, like I said, it kind of opens up the book of possibilities
Sure it does.
with different things you could do within that, and you're exactly right. And I did not have enough time to work on stuff, but I'm like you, it's like, well, the centers could do a walk and dodge, and the outsides could do a walk and dodge. Had these guys touch a quarter, you know, and then they walk and dodge, and you guys walk and dodge.
No,
And-
and they can do their cloverleaf from it.
Yeah, and then they could cloverleaf from there. So, yeah, it's got a lot of cool
Cool stuff. I like that.
possibilities, I thought, so, you know, Jerry taught me something
Can't
from,
imagine where I might be.
Oh, wait.
Tandems of three.
yeah, you could, it's really, it's just, like I said, if the book opens and it's just kind of
Go crazy.
an interesting concept, and I thought it was really cool when I saw it, the dancers enjoyed it.
Were you
So
drinking when you did
I
it?
appreciate you guys coming up and,
When he's watching the video.
you know, appreciate you guys dancing and and helping me with that, I appreciate it. So, I guess, is there any other questions or comments on that stuff? Anything about Cloverleaf? You guys are all very experienced callers in here, so
Yeah, but not everybody on the tapes are, so. you just have to-
yeah, well, like I said, I just walked through the beginning of how I teach it, and then in the notes, which you can download, there's a lot of material in there on get outs and, you know, how to mix it up, start off easy. I always start off real easy to do that. Am I running out of time?
No.
You're the boss. And so I always start off easy, you know, heads pass through, cloverleaf, zoom,
Right.
center square through 3, and out of man left. And just do that 2 or 3 times, get them warmed up. But yeah, to use that thing, I had a lot more success running them through that cloverleaf stuff first. Get that feeling, and not just try to teach that cold from that position.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some other stuff in here on getting the dancers all mixed up in cloverleaf, and just the girls and just the boys, and different leaders, and you know, the girls are leaders, the boys are leaders. Some other get out stuff in there. Some quickies, real quick ones sometimes, to get them out to a right and left grand and out and left. And yeah, the notes they're all in there. So anyway,
There you go.
thank you guys, appreciate it.
Extends from there.
Now, I have a question for our audience, since we've got a smart bunch in here this afternoon. Bear, what are you shaking your head for?
You say we're smart?
Well, you know. Is there anything that you can offer us that we might have missed? Or offer those on the tape?
Just, I did put some singing call figures on there, but Bear does a real cool one. And I'm going to speak for him because he doesn't have a mic, which is rare. It would be like a side space grand square, heads pass through in cloverleaf, and the sides just keep doing their grand square, correct?
Yeah.
And then,
That's an old singing call.
yeah, it's an old singing call, but it's goody.
Yeah.
Summer sounds, that figures never wears out, it seems like. That's a good one, and you know, the one with the cloverleaf, the boys are in the middle, square through 3, swing your corner. Girls are in the middle, square through 3, swing your corner. That's in the notes. So there's a lot of variety with the call. It's not difficult, but you can make it a little more interesting. And anyway, that's about all I got.
I do have a comment.
Microphone for Bear.
And we're talking about rebooting for mainstream, but you can also just remember for SSD, if that's what you're doing in your area, it's an easy thing to do a quick teach or even just make the girl follow the boy on their separate type thing, and they're going to stay behind them, have the girl stay behind them or whatever. But there's an easy way to adapt that to SSD, where if they don't have the call, you're just going to cue it the first couple times to get them through it. And, you know, and then it's fun to be able to use it any dance. So that was good. That was amazing. I really liked that. Thank you.
Well, that's a good idea, because you could have exactly the same thing and have separate and the other one follow. You could say that, and it would work. So, any other thoughts? I'm not in charge, he is.
No, actually, I did play video games a number of years ago, but I don't.
I see the wheels turning with it, they just don't want to talk about it, that's the worst part about it. I know how these guys are.
Yes, you're right.
You know. Twisted? Yes.
There's Cloverleaf and spread. A lot of fun.
Good.
If you don't have anything else, I'm sure.
Probably get away with it.
Very interesting.
Just before,
That'd be the most you've ever paid for a singing call.
I'm sure, Walt, we're all gonna buy that.
yeah.
15 other things.
Are there any other topics we want to discuss before Walt takes off?
Any other?
We have like, 25 minutes more, but.
Yeah, Walt needs to get another job real quick to pay for that from the auction, so he'll find something on the hallway.
Nah, I used her credit card.
That's why she was shaking her head so much at the back of the
Yes,
room.
no, on the-
For those of you are on the tape, we just had our lunch and they had the auction, and they auctioned out a recording session with Royal Records, and we're teasing Walt now because he actually won the bid. And so that's why you're hearing all this. Otherwise, you might go, what
The
the?
most expensive.
He paid as much as $100 for that thing.
It must have been like 14 marks.
Which parts? It's just nice. The which parts?
If there being no anything else this afternoon, I know we're done a little bit early. I'd like to give a hand to Jeff and to Walt. And thank you all very much for being here this afternoon.
Nice hand for Mr. Hebert.
Thank you.
I assume that she's the she-bear, so.
My lovely wife Melanie sitting over there, yes.
Yes.
Yes, keeping me in line, trust me.
Mm.
So, thank you all. Enjoy your afternoon.
All right.
Thank you.